January 3rd, 2014. From El Cajon, California, this is episode 37 of You Can Bet on That. Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. My name is Mark Duvall. As usual, I'm here with Dr. Mike.
Hello.
So we both took off the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Right.
Took it off work.
Off work.
Yep. So we afforded ourselves a couple extra trips to the casino.
Yeah, a little too much.
How'd that work out?
Not so well.
Yeah.
You know, we went on our normal Friday night.
Yep.
And that turned out great.
That was a good night, yeah.
Right. That was, Christmas was on
Wednesday. So it was 2 days after Christmas.
2 days after Christmas, we went on Friday, and we won, and that was a good night.
Yep.
And things seemed to go our way.
But then you had gone the previous day on Thursday. I did not go with
Thursday, the day after Christmas.
You went with your dad and your brother.
Right. My brother was in town. He was supposed to go home.
Yeah.
And I was just hanging around the house, and then he calls up and says, "Oh, I decided I'm going to go home Friday. Do you want to go out to Rincon?"
And so when he asked you that, were you thinking, no, I'm really not interested. The casino's just not for me?
Well, I wasn't quite thinking that. What I was thinking is, I'm going to go out there during the day, which we're usually there at night, and I'm going to get my butt kicked, and I'm going to be coming home pissed off.
Okay.
And I was right.
That's exactly what you told me about it. It sounds like it was pretty brutal.
Oh, it was terrible, Mark.
Yeah.
You cannot believe how bad the dice were. It was one of those things where my brother and I played craps. My dad played 3-card poker. And it was like, is anyone going to make a point?
Yeah.
You know, it was the perfect situation if you were on the don't.
You should have bet the don't. You're there.
God, I thought
under
about
daytime
it.
conditions.
I even turned to my brother and said, we should play the don't. And he's like, oh, I don't like that. And I know you don't. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really like that. But God, it was terrible. It was like somebody would come out on a point of 8. They'd roll a 9, a 6, a 4, and 7 out.
Yeah.
I mean, every time. It seemed like every roll. There was a point or two here and there. And him and I both, we kept looking at each other. And he even said once, oh, you know, that big roll will come and we'll get 3/4 of our money back in one roll.
Yeah.
Which is usually, you know, kind of what happens. At some point, you hang around long enough, you'll get a couple of good rolls.
Yeah, but it never came.
Never came.
Yeah.
So we ended up going home, and we got home early.
Oh, I know. I couldn't believe it when you called, said, well, we're heading home. And it's like, that must not be good.
No, that wasn't a good sign. We went home early. We lost our money that, you know, I didn't want to lose any more than that. And fortunately, won most of it back on Friday.
On Friday, that helped. Yeah. But then you and I went again on Sunday.
Yeah.
After you went to the Charger game.
I went to the Charger game.
That was something.
Yeah, one of the best games ever.
Ultimately.
And, yeah, it was nerve-wracking through the whole game, but it did help that they had Frisbee dogs. I got to mention the Frisbee dogs.
Yes.
Has nothing to do with gambling, but Frisbee dogs are the best entertainment at a sporting event.
Any sporting event where they're trying to kill time, halftime or before.
Yeah. I agree. Frisbee dogs.
Have Frisbee dogs.
Who wants to watch a band marching around? Dogs chasing Frisbees.
You can't beat it.
They're so good.
You're absolutely right.
So they had Frisbee dogs. The introductions were great. The game started, you know, and then it kind of like, oh no, the Chargers are going to blow this. And then they end up coming back and winning the game in overtime.
In overtime, after Kansas City blew a field goal.
Almost a gimme.
Yeah, right. So it was, I mean, for those who don't follow football, what it came down to is the Chargers beat all sorts of odds. They had to depend on other teams losing.
Right.
And then finally, when they were playing their game, if they could win, they would go to the playoffs. And it looked like Kansas City was going to win with 8 seconds left, a gimme field goal. They missed it. They went into OT. The Chargers ended up winning. They're going to the playoffs.
Chargers kicked a field goal in OT.
Right.
And still I thought, okay, because Kansas City had a chance, and they were driving down, and I thought, oh, God, we're going to lose again, right?
Yeah.
And they hung on and won. So.
But to bring it back to gambling, Chargers didn't cover because they were like 9.5-point favorites because KC was just going to play their scrubs because the game didn't really mean anything
They
to
played
them.
their second string, which is hard. The second string's hard to play against.
Yeah, because you don't know what to look for. You haven't seen the second string.
No, and they're trying to get a job next year, so they're playing their hearts out.
All right, so for gamblers, hopefully you bet on KC.
Right.
Right? Because but then you and I went to the casino and we thought you had such a good day. It's like, this is
everything's going my way.
And it started out okay and then tanked. So,
it started off okay. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was on that Thursday, but it still wasn't that good.
Yeah. Well, on Friday night was the night that we won, and it just so happened that we also met up with one of our listeners, Greg, who was in town, and we had a great session with him. He played craps with us. We the whole time we were there, we played craps, and came away a winner.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, and he was laughing about this. We always make the fire bet. Right. And so one time he decided not to make the fire bet.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, and he said, just watch this, now it'll hit. And sure enough, the shooter made 4 points, which is the minimum that the fire bet gets paid off for.
Right.
So,
did he come out on a fifth? I don't think so.
I don't remember him coming out on a fifth.
I think he repeated another
I think
number.
We needed like 4 in the 10. And that was it. So luckily Greg was laughing about that, and he ended up winning too, so it was okay.
Yeah, he was doing well. He was a good guy, and he played well.
Yeah. And one nice thing too, we were talking, he had this big case of poker chips that he had gotten from a company that he had done some business for. And he was just looking to get rid of them to somebody who needed them. So he gave them to us. Real nice big set of chips.
Yeah, a lot of chips.
And a lot of colors that we don't have either. So that's nice, like some yellows and some blacks and what have you. So
that'll just take our game up to another level.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to.
The yellows will be like $10 chips or something.
That'll be like, well, we've already have $25 chips.
Oh, that's
so
true.
We'll make $100 chips out of the blacks and then $500 out of the yellows.
There you go.
And so and we'll have to raise the stakes at our home game. Yeah.
You're going to have to find some more bad players.
Yeah, I'll
with
ask.
Lots of money.
We'll see. I'll run it by the crew. See if the buy-in now is going to be $500. I'll just give them one yellow chip. When they buy
Just see how that goes.
Yeah. So anyway, Greg, it was nice to meet you. That was great. Have you ever seen Viva Las Vegas?
Many times.
You have? Okay.
Many times.
So New Year's Eve, it was on Turner Classic Movies, so I recorded it.
Excellent.
And we watched it. My wife had never seen it before, so we sat and watched Viva Las Vegas. And my wife never wants to see it again.
Really?
Yeah, because of some of the slow segments with the singing.
Yeah.
And how nothing made sense.
Right.
Like there are things.
Well, it's like most of the those movies. The
Elvis movies.
Elvis movies.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it never makes sense. It's just Elvis singing.
It's singing, and he's lost his money, but he's flying around in helicopters, and he's buying gifts for her. And I had forgotten this. He's racing against this Italian race car driver, right?
Right. He's a race car driver.
Yeah, and they're not really bitter rivals. They're just, competing. And I'm watching the race. It's at the very end. His rival's car flips like a couple times, and then it's laying on its side, and another car crashes right into the top of it. And so it's like there's no way he could have survived. And then at the end, he's at the wedding. There's no explanation as to how he survived this horrific crash.
Without any injuries. Right?
Anyway, it was fun to watch, like old Las Vegas. A lot of the outdoor shots were down on Fremont Street.
Right.
So they were showing a lot of casinos that aren't there anymore, like the Mint. Remember the Horseshoe kind of absorbed the Mint, right? It was there.
Right.
And the Pioneer Club and a lot of things that aren't there. And it's the old Golden Nugget, the way that it used to
Right.
look.
Did some of that take place at Flamingo too? The old Flamingo, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Flamingo is supposedly where he was staying.
Right.
And
okay.
I guess it was some of that outdoor. It's funny because it doesn't look anything like the Flamingo now, right?
No,
I mean,
not
it's
at all.
completely different. And
the best thing about that movie, besides the scenes from Vegas, is Anne Margaret.
Oh, Anne Margaret,
she is so hot.
She's great.
She's still hot now.
I agree. She's like 70 years old.
Yeah. More than that.
No, I think I looked it up. I think it's 70.
She's only 70?
Yeah.
Oh my
I just
God.
looked it up the other day. Yeah.
She is a good-looking woman.
She was pretty. Did you said you met her?
I met Anne Margaret in person. My brother, who works for Disney, was in Orlando with Regis and Kelly. He's in charge of that show, and they were doing something. And she was one of the guests on the show.
Wow.
So we were backstage, and I talked to Anne Margaret. Came up to her really nice. Her and Oscar De La Hoya in the same day.
Wow.
Yeah, Oscar De La Hoya. I have a picture of him punching me.
Nice. And Anne Margaret, was she?
She did not punch me, but she was hot.
She was, and she was normal?
Normal.
Now, the reason I ask,
well, she was on a TV show that day, so she had to be fairly
But
normal.
she wasn't weird.
Not to me.
Now, because now my wife during the whole movie kept talking about how crazy she must be. Just the way she was kind of moving and the expressions and everything.
Oh,
and
no,
the
she
dancing.
was very nice to me.
She was my wife said, oh, she's way up high on that hot crazy scale. There's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where Barney is describing the hot crazy scale. And it's just an XY axis with hot on one axis and crazy on the other. And then the graph just goes, it's just like a 45-degree angle going up, right? Just with a slope of 1. And so the hotter a woman gets, the crazier she gets too, right?
Okay.
Everybody's kind of around that line.
But so that would assume that every woman who is even somewhat hot has got to be somewhat crazy.
Yeah, that is the assumption. Correct. Yes. And so
if they're not crazy, they're not hot.
Right.
Okay.
Right, it goes up there.
According to Barney.
According to that. And so my wife was saying, Anne Margaret was probably way up. Definitely hot.
Yeah, definitely hot.
But crazy. So
I'll tell you what, even as an old lady, now I saw her, that was well over 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So, but she was still very good looking then. Gosh, she's only 70?
Yeah, because when she was doing like movies like Bye Bye Birdie, she was like 18.
God, that
Yeah, that was
I
like
could have
the early
swore
60s.
she'd be like in her 80s or something.
No. Yeah.
Well, no wonder she's hot. She's only 70.
Anyway, Viva Las Vegas. Big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Just looking at all this stuff. Although I will say this.
My wife loves Elvis.
She
It's
does.
her favorite singer of all time.
Oh, my wife does too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, she loves Elvis. And my mom loved Elvis. Just the way he moved and sang.
Yeah.
He does have a good voice.
Oh, yeah.
But she watches those movies all the time. And Viva Las Vegas is low on her list.
Okay.
Of, it's highest on mine of Elvis
It's
movies.
fun. Maybe I'm watching it ironically and for the cheese factor, but I get a big kick out of it. It's fun, right? All right, let's talk a little bit more about gambling. Elvis was kind of on the Viva Las Vegas. That was kind of
He did a lot of gambling stuff, Elvis.
He did? Well, he was in Vegas a lot.
Yeah, in Vegas a lot. I mean, he was in a lot of his live shows and stuff were in Vegas.
Yeah, but he did a lot. He was involved in gambling? How?
No, I don't know that he was involved. He did a lot of things where he was in a gambling situation.
Milieu.
Yeah.
All right. So at Rincon, which as most listeners know is the Harrah's Casino by us, we have been keeping an eye on a Fortune Pai Gow jackpot, Pai Gow Poker jackpot at the Pai Gow Poker tables, a jackpot that had reached about $360,000.
Which is outstanding.
Now, this jackpot gets paid when a player has a 7-card straight flush, with or without the joker. It's the way this payout goes at Rincon, which is obviously very hard to do. It's like 1 in 600 some thousand. Right. But a 7-card straight flush would get paid this jackpot. And if the player got 5 aces, right, the 4 aces plus the joker, the player got 10% of this jackpot.
Which is still a chunk of money.
And this is based on just a $1 bet. Right. So it's a huge payoff. Well, according to the Wizard of Vegas website, the break-even point for the jackpot is just under $250,000. Before that, it's a negative EV bet.
Okay.
But
that assuming you're the only person playing the game.
Well, no, no, you don't have to be the only person. It's all individual.
Right.
Yeah. No,
but it just means if you sat there and put your dollar out long enough, eventually you'd hit it. And
well, you'd right. If you're the one who hits it,
you'd collect more. If you're not the one who hits it, it's not a positive.
Right, well, it's an extremely volatile situation. But at about the a little less than $250,000, the break even point, and the wizard even said he'd never seen a jackpot get that big. But out at Rincon, sure enough, it went over 300,000, 325, and we watched and it got up to 360,000. Right. And under those conditions, it's a positive EV about 25%, a little bit more than 25%, which is huge. However, again, it's only $1 bet. So it's, 25 cents basically. And, ultimately, you'd have to hit it to kind of take advantage of that.
Right.
So I thought it was pretty interesting that for quite a while there was a very big positive EV bet.
We didn't talk about it on earlier podcasts for obvious reasons. Right. I mean, one, that we wanted to play it too, and we didn't want a million people going out there. Right. But also we have friends who regularly play Pai Gow there.
Yes.
We don't. We're playing craps most of the time. I didn't play at all.
I did some. Yeah,
you did
I did some.
But our friends play it a lot, and we were hoping one of them might hit it.
Right. Well, somebody did finally hit it a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday. And boom, I think it was at about 350,000 at that point because somebody had won with the 5 aces.
Right, 5 aces, yeah.
So it was about 350,000. Somebody finally won it against this $1 bet. And now the jackpot's back down to 10,000.
God.
Which is,
how would you like to be the guy that hits it now? I mean, you'd still be happy with 10,000,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But you'd be thinking, what?
but
10,000?
yeah, now the 7-card straight flush jackpot is less than the 5 aces was.
Right.
Back
right.
when it was so big, right?
Well, it'll be less than that for a long time.
oh yeah, it sure
because that
will.
5 aces was 37,000.
Yeah, right.
So it's going to take a while to get back up in the 30s and 40,000.
Well, I did post. I posted this information to the Wizard of Vegas or the Wizard of Vegas forum, and it was it was pretty much agreed upon that even though this EV was so high on this bet, that it still wasn't a positive EV gain because you still had to make the Pai Gow Poker bet.
Right.
It was a $25 minimum table. The house always has an edge on that bet, even when you're banking because of the 5% commission that you have to pay, right? So, it may not have been, an advantage play, but we thought it was pretty interesting that the jackpot got so high, and at least it was something the Wizard of Odds had not seen before.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll see that for a while.
Oh, no.
Now, what was Greg, the guy, Greg, our listener who came out and played with us? He said something about that too. Do you remember? I thought he said it was some table where it was a bunch of casinos linked together.
Oh, yes, he did say that, right. And that so many people were hitting it because there were so many tables. Yeah, that's right. I do remember him saying that now, yeah. So anyway, that positive EV bet's gone now. At least at Rincon, back down to 10,000. So how'd you do in all the football pools that you entered this year?
Well, I have to say that this year was probably my worst year as an adult picking football.
As an adult.
Yeah, as an adult.
All right. Yeah, me too.
It was terrible.
Well, it's funny because now your daughters and your wife, between the 3 of them, won what, 5 times?
5 times, yeah.
You never won.
I never won your football pool.
Yeah.
I never won the football pool that my brother has at his work, which is a big one.
Yeah.
Survivor pool, I was out like within the first few weeks.
Right. Minnesota was upset,
Minnesota was upset.
So a lot of people were out of that early on.
And that did it for that. Yeah. But it was just miserable, just all year.
Oh, I know. And then you and I took part in the Wizard of Vegas pool. That was a year-long pool where every week you have to pick 5 games against the spread or the over-under. And we finished 39th out of 41 participants.
We're better than 2 people. So you 2 suck. Okay.
Oh my God. There were actually 43 people who entered, but 2 people just stopped playing. Yeah. Like one person after the first week went 0 for 5 and just stopped.
At least we kept with it.
Oh my gosh. So
God, we had bad, and it was, so many of those games were like we'd take a team and they'd be winning the whole game. I mean, we'd be winning the bet one way or the other, the whole game till the very end. And then somebody would kick a field goal or something would happen and we would lose,
37.04% is how we did. And next year, really, we should just flip a coin or have your daughter pick them.
Or call Steve Stevenson.
Steve Stevenson.
Pay a bunch of money. So he'll give us all the winners all year. We'll get 100%.
Yeah, that'll work out. We'll probably have to pay him like $5,000 and then we'll win about $500 in the pool. That'll be worth it just for prestige.
Bragging rights.
Prestige.
Then I can say all 41 of the people underneath us suck.
Well, one thing that did work out for me this last year, I eked out a win for poker in 2013. I was toying with having my first losing poker year ever, but I had a nice little...
As an adult.
Yes, as an adult. That's true. I'm glad you qualified that. So I just eked it out. I didn't win very much, but
you did win. I was ahead for the year, I think.
Oh, yeah, you were too, definitely. Yeah. Now, I'm not counting tournament play.
Right.
Because that's like a side thing for me. I don't play in a lot of tournaments.
Right.
So I'm probably
just
cash
game.
Just cash. Yeah, cash and because I did play in a casino cash game earlier this year out at Verona for a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And won a little bit there. So
did anyone has anyone of our group ever do we have anybody who's never won for a year?
Yes.
We do.
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay.
I won't mention.
You better tell me.
I'll tell you off the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a couple.
Really?
Yeah.
That have never won.
That have never won for a calendar year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll talk about it.
That's
offline.
rough.
Yeah. That is bad. Hey, we've got a new feature on our app. For those who download our app, Of course, we have the TV listings that I talk about each episode, but we now have new audio content. Mike and I record extra audio as a bonus that you can only listen to when you have our app. And in fact, this episode, for episode 37, we talk about some funny things that happened to us on a trip back in our college days, or just post-college days. Yeah, where we went with a bunch of guys and we didn't have any money. So if you download our app, you'll be able to listen to that extra audio. It's about 10 minutes worth of extra audio. And also, like I said, I generate TV listings every Wednesday that I attach to our app that lists all the American TV shows that have to do with gambling or Las Vegas or any of those related things for the next 2 weeks. And I've actually added something to those listings too. Right? It used to be that it would just be a list of shows, and then under each show, each of the showings for the next 2 weeks. So you'd see Ocean's 12 is on, and then the list of all the times it's on, the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now at the bottom, I also include a chronological listing. So you can just look and say, okay, it's what's on right now. And so you can just go there. I don't know why I didn't do this before, because there's like 10 extra lines of code in my Perl script. But now there's a chronological listing. So you look, say, oh, I want to watch something gambling related right now. Boom, there it is.
That's what it is.
Right.
Interesting.
So to download our app, you just go to our webpage, youcanbetonthat.com, and on the left-hand side of the page, click on the link that says how to download our app. We have a link for Android devices and another one for iPhones and iPads. So give that a look.
Yeah, I was going to say just real quickly about the extra material. When we were young and didn't have as much money, our trips were about gambling. I mean, we did a lot of gambling with whatever money we had, but it was a lot more about screwing with each other,
Yeah.
And a little getting into trouble here and there. Nothing real big. Nobody went to prison.
No, but it's true. We didn't have as much money to gamble with, so we weren't gambling all the time either. Right. Like our trips right now are pretty much solid gambling, but we would do, extra stuff. Yeah. When we were there.
Now, we don't, take 3 hours out to go, skydiving.
Right.
Or anything like that.
So we're going to talk about a new game, a new table game, new casino game, brand spanking new. It's called War Blackjack. And it is currently being played at the Bear River Casino in Lolita, California. It's up by Eureka, way up in kind of the northern part of California. They're playing it there. And I'm looking at the article here. It won first place at the Ravings Consulting Casino Journal Best New Table Game of 2013 competition held at Paris.
So the game that got first place was when some guy decided to combine war and blackjack.
The much maligned war casino game that we've talked about and blackjack.
Well, it's about time somebody did that.
Somebody finally got their act together.
I hope Alan's listening, so he can push for this game at Rincon.
At Rincon.
My dad would love that.
Here's the way it works. It's kind of a kick. I kind of like how the rules work. It's actually very simple. There's a war bet on this table and a blackjack bet.
Okay.
And according to the house, you can just make the blackjack bet and just play blackjack as usual. Right? So the war bet is optional. But it's up to the house. If the house wants to make it a mandatory bet, they can as well. Also, how much you can bet on each of those bets, the blackjack and the war, is up to the house. So you could make if the house allowed it, you could make like a $5 bet on blackjack and a $100 bet on the war bet.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing in these rules, the official rules that say that they have to be the same.
Okay.
But typically when a casino has a bet like that, they say it has to be less than or equal to the blackjack bet when it's kind of a side bet.
Well, they like to keep it even too. It's a lot easier for the dealers and stuff. And there's less arguing if no, I meant to put that here or that was there.
Yeah, that's true.
That kind of stuff.
That's true. So you make the two bets before the hand is dealt. Once the bets are there, the dealer deals an up card to the player and an up card to himself and stops right there. Right?
That's your war.
That's your war. And again, war is very simple. It's just whoever has the higher card wins the war bet. And if your cards are the same, the house wins. So that's where they have their edge on the war bet.
Right.
And for this particular game, and we'll talk about why this is critically important, aces are low for war. That's not the way it is in the typical casino war. Aces are high.
Right.
But for this game, aces are low.
Okay.
So you compare the hands. If, as a player, you have a lower card or the exact same card as the dealer, you lose your bet. If you have a higher card, you win your bet, even money.
Okay.
All right. At this point now, you have the option as the player of taking your winnings, not your initial bet, but just your winnings, and adding it to your blackjack bet.
Ah. So if your first card was a king,
right,
you'd be tempted to take your winnings and add it to your blackjack bet, especially if the dealer had a 6.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an extreme example, right?
Right.
If you had a king and he had a 6, you win the war bet.
Right.
And now at that point, you're probably going to want to increase your bet. I don't have the basic strategy, optimal strategy, so I don't know what that is.
It's probably why they want aces to be low.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
Because if you had an ace and you won that bet, you could get blackjack.
Of course, you're going to increase your bet if you have an ace.
Right.
But as it turns out, the way the war rules work, if you're dealt an ace for that first card, you lose automatically.
Right.
Right? Because, there's no way to win with that low ace.
You have the lowest possible card.
Exactly. Right. So you have that option. I think the rules actually say that you can take anywhere from half of your winnings to all of your winnings and add it to your blackjack bet.
Okay.
Now, if it was the right strategy, I can't imagine why you wouldn't put all of your winnings on there. I'm sure that if you have the option, you should always put all your winnings. Whether or, when to do it, I'm not exactly sure. But obviously, an example like you said, if a king
that would
versus
definitely
a 6,
be a time.
you definitely want to do that. But, what if you've got a king and the dealer has a queen?
Yeah,
right?
well, then you
what
probably
are you supposed to
wouldn't,
do?
right?
Yeah. So, and then at that point, blackjack just play. Okay. So then you either add to your bet or you don't. It's your option. And then he deals another up card to you as a player and then a down card for himself.
Okay.
And then it just
plays blackjack.
And then it just plays like blackjack. Typical blackjack rules. I think the house has the option to not offer insurance or surrender. Insurance isn't that big a deal typically because it's usually a bad bet. Surrender, it'd be nice if they did. But again, that's the house way. But, blackjacks get paid 3-2. You can split, you can double, you can double after splitting. Yeah. And just plays out.
But
just
in the
like
war
that.
game, if you tie, there's no dealing 3 cards over and then flipping another one.
Right. That's another thing. Yeah. In casino war, when you tie, then you go to war where you have to increase. No, it's just if you have the same card. Yeah. The house just wins, and then you continue on. You play blackjack. Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, again, it's almost a brand new game. I want to thank Gary Hammond at War Blackjack Incorporated because he was nice enough to send me their rack card and then a detailed description of all the rules. Because sometimes when you look at those rack cards, it doesn't have some of the nuances to the game.
Right.
How many times have you been to a new game and you started playing and you think you know all the rules because you read the rack card, and then suddenly there's this.
Right.
If there's a tie here, this happens. Well, that wasn't on the rack card. Oh, yeah, but that's the rule.
Right.
And you don't know. So he sent me a big list of all the rules to get it right. And it's funny because I was looking at this game and I thought, boy, who would probably be real interested in analyzing this game is Stephen Howe over at discountgambling.net. I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll take all this stuff that Gary Hammond sent me and I'll send it to Steve and maybe he can take a look at it and kind of analyze it and come up with a basic strategy. And then I'm looking at the fine print in the rules and it said the statistical evaluation for this game was run by Stephen Howe. So he already saw not only is he familiar with it, he was actually the official person to work through all the statistics on it. So I'll have to ask him about that. But yeah.
So what's the house edge on that?
I don't know. They didn't. Yeah. So there was some more attachments that I didn't get, like the optimal strategy and the house edge and stuff like that.
Has to be pretty high because it seems to me like they take a lot of those pushes on the war.
Right. And especially that ace that you're talking about, right? The ace is a great card for you in blackjack and an automatic loser on the war bet.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like you might want to almost make your war bet a little smaller than your blackjack bet. Just because you're at such a disadvantage in that war bet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the best basic strategy is just to not make the war bet, right?
Right. If they let you just do one, just play blackjack.
So I don't know. I think people would like that idea though of being able to take the winnings and like, ooh, I've got a good hand.
Well, that's the clincher. That's what gets you to play, right?
But when you think about it, probably the only time that you would want to increase your bet is when you won the war bet anyway.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? Right. So, it's
because the thing is psychologically, you win your war bet you've got a king.
Yeah.
They've got a 6 up there. You're like, oh, great. And you take your money and you put it over on your blackjack bet. Well, it doesn't mean you're going to win your blackjack bet.
No, it doesn't.
Right? You could still lose that. So, but if you lose your war bet, you don't have any money to put over on the blackjack bet. So it's kind of like, if you lose your war bet, they got your money. If you win your war bet, you put it over there, and sometimes they're going to get your money anyway.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Right.
So, I don't know. It's that plays on that psychological thing of the person thinking, oh, I can increase my blackjack bet. I'm hot. I already won my war bet. I'm on a roll.
Right. Well, I'll see if I can find out some more information on it. And obviously, you'd have to memorize the basic strategy for when you do increase your blackjack bet. But I would guess in most cases you would, unless maybe it's a 10 versus 10 situation.
Well, if you had a queen and they had a 7, would you... I guess, you'd still be at the advantage. You still have a better chance of getting 20.
Without us running the math, it seems like that would be something you'd want to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so that is War Blackjack. Watch for it.
Hi, this is Mitch.
And this is Dr. Kev. We're the hosts of the Tipping the Odds Las Vegas podcast, your source for news and reviews about all things Las Vegas. You are listening to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler.
That's a bet you won't lose.
So last episode, we asked people, hey, what do you think of the home game, the poker home game segment? Is it something that you like, or is it something that as soon as we start talking about it, you just skip it? It's like, okay, I'm not interested in this part. And ultimately, it was kind of 50-50. There were some people who really liked it, and then there were others who said, oh, I love the show, but I don't listen to the poker home game segment. I don't have a poker home game, or I don't like playing against my friends I like playing a casino, that kind of thing. So
I can understand that.
Yeah, sure.
I can understand that.
So we're going to continue the segment. Maybe we won't do it every episode, but we're definitely going to continue the segment every other episode, something like that. We'll see how it is, and it'll depend on how many good games we have to talk about.
Right, exactly. That's the real thing, is how many good games do we have to talk about.
And I've got a big list of poker home games, and some of them probably just aren't even worth talking about. Right. But we are going to talk about one tonight, and it is not poker-based. So
it's what we call our goofy game.
One of our
goofy
games.
games.
Right. So again, the poker home game segment is when we talk about a game that you would not find in a poker room in a casino, but that you might play with your buddies when you get together for a poker home game. Tonight, we're going to talk about Screw Your Neighbor. It's also called Chase the Ace. And it is a game where the last man standing wins the pot. So the way that you start the game is everybody puts 3 stacks of chips in front of them. You can determine how much each stack is worth. Right. We like to play where it's 3 stacks of $2 each. Right. So everybody's putting out $6 at the beginning.
Yeah, it could be $1, it could be a quarter if you.
Oh, we used to play 4 stacks of just a quarter back years ago when we had kind of lower stakes. So you can decide how many stacks, usually 3 or 4 stacks of however much money in each stack you want.
Right.
Everybody puts that out in front of them.
Yeah, I think you need at least 3.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, to make it, I think you need
4,
at least
3 and 4.
Yeah. 3, yeah.
5's getting a little too many, but 2 is when it just goes too fast.
Yeah. And here's as simple as it is. Each round, every player gets 1 card, and the object on each round is to not have the lowest card. And aces are low.
Yeah, make that real clear, not to get the highest card.
Right.
But not to have the lowest card.
Right. So what happens is everybody is dealt 1 card. And then starting to the dealer's left, that player looks at his card and he decides if he wants to keep it or if he wants to trade it with the person to his left.
Yeah.
So if he wants to trade, the person to his left has to trade with him.
They look at their card.
And
then they pass it on to him because he requested it.
Right.
And they take his card and they look at it and then they decide what they're going to do.
Right. That player also decides, do I want to keep this card or do I want to send it to the player to my left?
Right.
Every player gets that until it gets around to the person on the button. If he doesn't want to keep his card, he just trades with basically the deck. He'll get the next card off the top of the deck.
Right. So he has an option as well. If he gets stuck with a card from the guy in front of him and he doesn't like that card, he can trade with the deck.
Right.
And then he's stuck. Then he has to take the top one off the deck.
Right. Then after that, everybody just shows all their card. Everybody flips up their card. Whoever is showing the lowest card loses one of his stacks.
Yeah. And if there's a tie, if let's say 2 people have 2s and that's the lowest card,
right?
then they both lose a stack.
Right. They both lose a stack, right, if there's a tie. So, and then the button moves, and again, cards are dealt out. And this just continues until only one player has chips in front of him. Everybody else has lost their stacks. You lose one stack of chips every time you have the lowest card going around the table.
And eventually there'll be two people, and some guy will lose his last stack, and the other guy will still have a stack. He gets all the money in the pot.
He gets the whole pot. Right, exactly. Now, again, the idea here is to not get the lowest card. So let's say you're sitting there and you're looking at a card. You look at your card and you've got an ace, okay? And the guy to your right is trying to decide what to do. It's not your turn yet. It's his turn. Right. He passes you his card, so you have to give him yours. Well, if he passes you a deuce, a deuce is a pretty bad card in this game, but you know that you just passed him an ace.
Ace plays low.
Right? So he's going to have the lowest card no matter what. So you have that deuce, and you just say, oh, I'm good. I'm not going to trade with the guy to my left.
Right.
Even though you've got a crummy deuce, why pass it along to the person?
Right, because I might have an ace on your left, and I might give you an ace, and you'd be out too.
So you know you're not going to lose this round.
As long as you beat one person, you're good.
Right, exactly. So now let's talk about some more strategy of this game, and then we'll talk about some little twist to it. When do you hold on to a card, and when do you pass it along? Well, if you're one of the first ones to act, if you've got 6 or higher, I think you should stay.
I do too.
Right.
Especially in a game where there's, say, 7 people still in.
Right. That depends too how many people there are exactly.
Because if there's enough people in, somebody's going to have a low card. Somebody's going to have a 3, a 4, a 5, a 2.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
Maybe even with a 5. If I'm in early position and there are a lot of players, I may stay with a 5.
Yeah, if there were a lot, if it was early in the game.
Right. 4 or lower, though, I'm probably going to try to get rid of it.
Sure.
Right, and hope that somebody doesn't pass me a lower card.
Right.
4 or lower.
It's always the worst when you pass like a 3 and the guy sends you a 2.
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
Like, okay, well.
Yeah. Now, if it's gone around the table and everybody has just stayed with the card that they have, and you look down and you're the last person, you're on the button and you've got a 6, well, then you're going to want to get rid of that, right? Because everybody stayed, they probably have high cards.
Right, especially if that card was passed all the way around. It's the lowest card out there.
Pat, no, I was talking about a situation where nobody passed a card.
Oh, yeah. Well,
everybody
nobody passed and you had a 6. Right. Even if you had a 7 at that point, you might even consider it.
Maybe.
I'd probably still keep it.
I'd probably keep
I'd
a 7.
But I'd be scared to death.
I'd get rid of it. Yeah. So it really depends on where you are. But, kind of 5 and lower, those are kind of considered the low cards. And depending on what position you are, you might want to get rid of it. You might want to keep it. Now, let's say that you're towards the end of action, and in front of you, player A said, oh, I'm going to trade with player B, and then player B says, oh, I'm good. So you know that somebody got hurt there, right? The player who
the player A's got a bad card.
Right. He was just given a bad card.
Problem is you don't know how bad.
Right. Was it a situation where the guy,
traded a 6 and they gave him a 5?
Right. Is it that high? Or did he trade, a deuce and got an ace?
Right.
Right. So you're in later position and now you're looking at your card and you've got like a 5. All right. If you've got a 5, you're probably going to say, I'm good.
Yeah.
Probably the transaction that you saw in front of you was something that resulted in someone with lower than a 5.
Right.
But if you got like a 3?
Yeah, you've got a 3, it's scary.
You might want to get rid of that.
Because the guy could have passed a 4 and gotten a 3.
Right.
And then you're tied with him if you keep it, you lose too.
Right. Yeah.
So there is a little bit of...
You got to think when you've seen that in front of you. Now, if you got a deuce or an ace, well, of course, you're getting rid of those. They're just too low to take the risk. But it's in those situations where you've seen a transaction go on and then suddenly the guy who got the new card says, oh, I'm good. I'm happy with where I am. Then you have to think about it. And then, when it gets down to heads up, then it changes quite a bit. If you're first to act, if you're not on the button and you've got a 7, it's like, maybe you have to pass that along,
Right. And maybe you don't. Maybe you just take a chance that they've got a low one.
The guy on the button, heads up, has a huge advantage.
Huge advantage.
Because you have to act first.
Well, he gets 2 cards.
He basically gets 2 cards. If you pass to him, he gets to see what you've passed, and he knows if he can just stay pat or not.
And he can trade.
Or you can trade if you've got a worse card. And if he just says, I'm good, and you've got an 8, Well, then so it's a huge advantage to be at the end.
Well, the worst thing when your head's up in your first act and you're looking at an 8 or a 9 and you say, I'm good. And the other guy says, I'm good.
Yeah. And he
Real
throws
fast.
over a jack and that's it. Yeah. Game. Or the king or something like that. But that's as simple as it is. It can make for some big pots. There's so much luck involved. There is strategy like we talked about, but a lot of times it's just, you kind of hope that you're dealt low cards that you can pass on to somebody.
Right. Either they trade with you and you give them a low one, or you pass it on to that guy hoping to get his higher card.
But that doesn't always work too. No. You could be sitting there with an ace and it's like, ooh, good. And it's your turn to act. So you pass it. The guy gives you a deuce. It's like, oh, great. The ace is going to go all the way around to the guy in the button. Right. He's going to take a card off the top of the deck. I'm going to lose with the deuce. So, it's not guaranteed, but it's a fun game. And it's I've played it at more than just our home game. I've played it at other home games too.
I think it's fairly common.
Yeah.
I think it's fairly common.
Now, here's a twist that is very fun to introduce to the game called the King Stopper. If you are dealt a king, a player cannot trade with you.
Yeah.
So if you've got a king and the player to your right tries to trade with you, you just flip over your king and it's like, king stopped.
King stopped. And that sends a signal to everyone else that guy's got a pretty low card.
Right. But again, how low?
How low, you don't know. It could be a 6. It could be a 2.
Right.
I mean,
so a king, if you're dealt a king, you're guaranteed to at least not be given another card. Right.
For years, we played king stopper. You flip it when the guy tries to trade with you.
Yes.
Now, if someone doesn't trade with you, you don't have to expose your king.
Right.
You just say, I'm good. That guy says he's good, then you say, I'm good.
Right.
But we have a friend, Bill, who his rule is you just flip your kings up right away.
Like at the beginning of the hand. I hate that rule.
I don't like it either.
Because when it becomes heads up, right? Let's say that you're on the button and you've got a king and the other guy has a queen.
Right.
Right? Well, if he shows you his king right away, then the guy with a queen who would have normally said, I'll draw. And the rule in our home game is if you draw the king off the deck, you're not king stopped.
Right.
So he could draw. He knows now all of a sudden, right? Whereas the other way, with his queen, he'd just say, I'm good.
And the other guy would flip his king and say,
he loses his game. Right. So king stopper. Again, if you have a king, somebody tries to trade with you, you just flip over the king and suddenly they can't trade. And everybody knows that he's got a pretty bad card. Now, I just said that we don't have a king stopper off the deck. That's kind of what we agree upon. I like the king stopper off the deck.
Yeah, I do too.
So if you're on the button and, an ace was passed all the way around you and you try to take a card off the deck and it's a king, your king stop, you got to play the ace.
I like it too.
I prefer that too. But Bill, who usually calls the game, he said, no, when you're on the button, you got this huge disadvantage, which I'm not sure is true, but that's what he says. And so he doesn't like the king stopper.
Well, another thing that Bill does differently than we've done for years is he deals one card out to everybody. We play that hand, then he shuffles again.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
And we don't. For years, we just played through the deck.
Right. So you could be counting cards if that can give you any kind of advantage. I don't know. But you can think, all the aces have been played or something like that.
Right.
That's another thing to consider. Between each round, are you going to reshuffle or are you just going to play till you have, the deck is down to like 10 cards?
If you're playing with people who are sophisticated enough to keep track of everything, you might want to reshuffle every time. It's not a problem in our game, okay? Because even me, I'm not paying attention.
I never keep track. No,
I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
I can't play cards, talk crazy talk, and watch sports on TV at the same time.
Way too much to do.
Way too much.
I agree. Yeah. All right. So anyway, if you've got a home game that you'd like us to talk about, drop us a line at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com and we'll talk about it on the air. Also, on the left-hand side of our homepage, under categories, there's a link called Poker Home Games. You just click on that and it will take you to a page that lists all the home games that we've talked about and the episodes on which we've talked about them. All right, that's going to do it for episode 37. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us with questions and comments at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com, or you can leave us a short voice message by going to our webpage and clicking on Send Us a Voice Message. That'll open up a dialogue where you can leave a message up to 90 seconds long using the microphone on your computer or mobile device. Also follow us on Twitter at YouCanBetOnThat. We always tweet when we're in a casino or on our way to a casino, and we'd love to meet up with you. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YouCanBetOnThat. And finally, head on over to iTunes and write a review on us. When you do, it helps us get new listeners. Dr. Mike.
I guess the last thing I'd like to add is that, if you happen to buy the app, listen to the extra data, the extra content that Mark's put on there, and you'll find out why Mark refuses to do CPR on choking people.
Yeah. Well, I don't even want to be in the same room.
Yeah, he just leaves.
That's right. All right, great. We'll see you next time.
Good night.